ocean, twin to our own terrestrial environment. Yet in many ways more mysterious to us than the farthest reaches of outer space, and inhabited by creatures more wondrously complex than any that a science fiction writer could invent. The ocean compels us to explore it, but it does not always welcome humankind. Our presence here is superficial, and the ocean depths are not without defenders. Southern Africa's beaches are famous among both local and international holidaymakers. The tranquility of the scene above the water's surface gives no hint of the primal world below, where laws like survival of the fittest and eat or be eaten hold sway. We are outsiders to that world and intrude upon it at our peril. No forensic analysis can adequately describe the horror of being attacked by a shark. Words and pictures can only hint at the abyss of actual pain and fear. Despite the horror, there are people who choose to get close to sharks. The closer, the better. People for whom interaction with sharks has become a way of life. The attack team is preparing to follow the planet's most feared predator, the great white shark, into its own element, on its own terms. Only by leaving behind the security of cages and scuba apparatus can they go beyond previous limits, enter the world and mind of this beast, and hopefully live to tell the tale. Preparation for these potentially fatal encounters is crucial. Despite our fears, there is a tribe of hunters who plunge gladly into the netherworld, taking to the water as bats take to the night air. They are the free-diving spear fishermen. To escape the constraints imposed by scuba equipment, they train to hold their breath underwater for up to 5 minutes. Significantly longer than a round of boxing. Graham Duane, the attack team's lead underwater cameraman, prepares himself physically and mentally to enter the realm of the world's most dangerous sharks.
Breath hold diving or free diving in a controlled environment like a swimming pool or a deep tank is very different to when you get in the sea and you start free diving in an open ocean environment. All sorts of things come into play.
Graham's mission requires an intimate understanding of the sea, with its dangerous currents and fickle weather. Graham must discipline himself to conquer the agony of extended breath holding. He must then learn to judge precisely the amount of oxygen that remains in his lungs. If he stays underwater too long, his body will become oxygen-starved. A blackout, brain damage, and drowning will result. Beyond this, Graham will be investigated by the oldest fighting submarines of all. And unlike the other dangers, sharks possess intentions and intelligence, albeit of a very different sort to our own. Sharks rely on natural radar systems developed over hundreds of millions of years of evolutionary history. Systems so sophisticated that military technology has scarcely begun to match them. Sharks have a range of hunting sensors that enable them to home in accurately on distressed prey. The shark's lateral line, which runs from nose to tail, comprises a hearing canal filled with extraordinarily sensitive hair trigger receptors. A speared fish makes violently appealing vibrations in the water. These can be heard by sharks from distances up to several miles away. The speared fish also releases a cloud of succulent body fluids. And sharks have a sense of smell that can detect one particle of blood amid 100 million particles of water. Thus, it is able to home in on its prey, even through hundreds of meters of murky water. So, when a fish is speared, sharks are likely to converge upon the diver. And Graham will be counting on this to bring the sharks towards his camera. With a range of vision up to 20 meters, the sharks will see Graham long before he sees them. Their eyes, like the eyes of cats, contain mirror platelets that recycle the light passing through the retina. The shark's fourth hunting radar is known as the Lorenzini receptor. Situated in the pores of the shark's snout, it acts as a natural voltmeter, detecting the weak electromagnetic fields that all living animals produce. To use its fifth and decisive sense, the shark must bite, allowing its well-developed taste receptors to make a final judgment before it swallows. Graham must avoid this at all costs. He knows that when the sharks arrive, they will be highly stimulated and ready to feed. He is the bait at the end of the blood trail. Many species find safety in numbers, and humans are no exception. Graham will dive back to back with experienced spear fishermen. The spear gun the divers carry is designed for hunting game fish. And against the onrush of a large, determined shark, the spear would have about as much stopping power as a turkey arrow against a lion. Graham's first assignment is in Mozambique. Mozambique was among Africa's most serious Cold War casualties. For decades, this country was racked by political extremes and a brutal civil war. Now that the violence has ended, Mozambique's idyllic beaches and warm Indian Ocean waters are once again attracting visitors from around the globe. These abundant waters attract divers who feel freer away from the clutter and safety of more regulated waters. Here, the nearest emergency services and modern hospitals are at least 400 miles away. For spear fishermen like Barry Skinstad, the risks of this new frontier merely add spice to the bountiful hunting. Today, Barry is guiding Graham Duane and the attack camera team to the Pinnacle, a seamount that slopes off into exceedingly deep waters. Here, one may encounter a great variety of marine species. And, as with any ecosystem, an abundance of prey may draw an abundance of large predators. The Mozambican coastline is home to two species of shark that are among the most dangerous to man: the Zambezi shark and the tiger shark. The tiger shark may reach a length of 5 meters, with one incredible 9-meter specimen on record. It prefers bays and estuaries to the open sea and is willing to eat anything, alive, dead, or even badly decayed. Such habits have inspired shark watchers to nickname the tiger the marine hyena or the swimming dustbin. Though no ordinary dustbin has teeth and jaws capable of carving through the shell of a giant turtle. Barry Skinstad was fortunate to escape the attentions of a tiger shark.
I was diving on another reef just south of here, and I looked below me and I saw a shark coming up from below and behind me. And by the time I turned my gun to it, it was already turning. I saw its eye. I just remember seeing its eye mist over and its mouth coming up to bite me like that. And I just managed to get my spear, the front of my spear, into the gun, and I hit the butt in my chest. And as it hit the spear, it just pushed me right out the water. And I managed just to turn its head like that, and it came through under my right arm like that, and its peck hit me in the chest, and it just splashed and moved off, you know. And also I just quickly got onto the boat after that.
Tigers are more unpredictable. In the instance of Barry's attack, I just wanted to eat him. They also have the reputation for just eating anything floating on the surface. That's the problem with working with a tiger, is that it's not as hesitant to actually bite something, and obviously requires more caution when you're in the water with a tiger.
The Zambezi shark is somewhat smaller than the tiger, but pound for pound, its teeth and jaws are even more devastating. It is the only shark that tolerates entirely fresh waters and has been known to swim thousands of miles up great rivers. The Zambezi River, the Amazon River, the Ganges, and the Mississippi all have been home to the Zambezi shark. Thus, the Zambezi, beyond any other species of shark, may be inclined to hunt land animals that stray into the water.
The Zambezis are a different kettle of fish completely, and it's very much a pack situation. We'll always have 6 or 7 3-meter Zambezis around us, and we bring them in with baited fish, and they come closer and closer and closer, and they swim around you, and you know, they come, the whole group just vortexes around you, and you can't really watch where any particular shark is, and they'll U-turn in and veer out, and I'm far more uncomfortable in that situation. It's just so much more unpredictable. All it takes is for the dominant shark in that Zambezi pack to take the first bite of your bait ball, and then all hell breaks loose, and then it's a very good idea to get out of the water as quickly as possible.
What happened with the Zambezi, I was diving on a reef about 20 meters. I had shot a fish on the bottom, and I'd left my gun, and I was just swimming slowly up to the surface, and out the corner of my eye I saw a shark, and it just swam straight into my chest. I couldn't do anything about it, and I was just trying to hit it as it bit around my back like that, and obviously it missed me, and then it just moved off out into the back, and then I just swam up to the surface as fast as possible and got onto the boat.
Barry Skinstad's good fortune has not been shared by all who have ventured into Mozambican waters. South African spearfishing enthusiast Johan Preller and his fiancée Vilma were passionate about their expeditions to Mozambique.
So she was 100% comfortable and she really loved it. She just couldn't stop telling all her friends about the spearfishing and how much that meant to her.
Mozambique presented Johan and Wilma with superb spearfishing and hidden dangers. When the motor of Johan's boat failed, he and Wilma decided to swim the boat back to shore.
In the whole time that we were swimming, we didn't see any fish, we didn't see any sharks.
Unbeknown to the physically exhausted couple, their every move was being tracked by a deadly hunter on the periphery of their vision.
We didn't see it circle, we didn't see it at all. And the next minute I heard her scream and I saw the shark in her left side. I took 2 strokes at the most, and as I came around I had my arm out and I punched the shark. Immediately it let go and it was off. As I pulled her in, I turned her around, and the moment I turned around I saw the terrible damage that was done. Her left breast was gone, there was a big wound in the whole area. From the rib cage, under her breast, the whole area up to her stomach was gone. Intestines were out, hanging out a portion of it. And then the right arm, halfway to the elbow, was absolutely missing. I realized that she was dying, that there was no chance of her surviving the attack. As I was sitting next to her, I could see her heart pumping in her breath, in her chest, and there was a lot of blood from her intestines running into the bottom of the boat. The boat was red, but there was also water coming into the boat, so you couldn't see what was blood and what was water. Then I put my arm around her to comfort her, and just realizing that I was saying goodbye and trying to make her comfortable. And I could see first her lips who were going blue and then white, just as the blood was seeping out. And then after about 5 minutes, her eyes started rolling and the pupils were getting bigger. And then the next minute, it was all over.
At the time of filming, Southern Africa was seeing an unusually high number of shark attacks. 31 incidents were recorded. Tiger and Zambezi sharks have been implicated in some of these attacks. But the tip of Africa, where the warm Indian Ocean meets the cold Atlantic, is home to a more legendary killer. The monster made famous by films like Jaws, the great white shark. Wilma was not the only person for whom an encounter with a shark proved fatal.
East London beaches have been closed after a fatal shark attack in the area.
Police divers have had to suppress their own fears to search these waters for the body of Ian Hill, a 39-year-old electrician from Durban. Hill was diving alone around the kelp beds 150 meters offshore when witnesses saw the water churn and become bloodstained. The telltale wake of a shark's fin confirmed that Hill was under attack. Later, his wife Sandra was able to identify one of his diving flippers.
Ian Hill's body was never found, and local speculation suggests that he was actually consumed by the shark. Yet a true man-eater is highly unusual. In other attacks around southern Africa, the shark seemed merely to be intimidating the human intruder or investigating with its mouth. Dr. Leonard Compagno is a world authority on shark taxonomy and is also at the forefront of new thinking on shark behavior.
White sharks, unlike a cat or certain other predators that have good manual dexterity. They don't have any hands. Their pectoral fins, equivalent to our arms, are useless for manipulation. The only other organs apart from their jaws and mouth is their tail, which they can use in certain ways too, for whacking things and hitting things and such. And they do that, and they may also use this for a display. But their mouths are their primary ways of tools for investigating things. Unfortunately, as far as we're concerned, those jaws studded with these huge razor-sharp teeth can do very serious injury to our relatively delicate skin.
People who study great whites often feel a strange affinity and even affection towards these sharks. Former spearfishing champion Andre Hartmann is famous locally as an aficionado of great whites. Today, Andre will attempt to demonstrate the great white's biting power to the attack camera team. This carcass of a bronze whaler shark weighs over 300 pounds, twice the weight of a sizable human male, and its hide is tougher than a buffalo's.
What's the shot? Okay, there's a shark here.
A great white approaches the boat and takes an unexpected interest in the float.
It's more interested in that red buoy on the surface. And it's just going for that all the time. It's not interested in the shark at all. Maybe it's not hungry. It's just maybe just an investigatory bite, you know.
Shark behavior often mystifies us. Why bite the float instead of the carcass? Could it be that the shark is attracted by the color of the float? Or by its bobbing motion on the surface? Is the great white somehow confident that it need not rush to consume the carcass? There are no definite answers. The power and ferocity of this animal's attack is almost unimaginable. A biting force of around 3 tons per square centimeter of tooth has been claimed for average-sized great whites. The biting force of larger specimens appears to defy scientific measurement. Great whites can unhinge their upper jaw and have teeth with the same cutting features as a set of professional butcher's knives. They use their lower teeth to peg their prey, then extend the upper jaw, slice, and tear away. Just as vultures follow lions, seagulls follow sharks, hoping to pick up the remains of the kill. Graham is relieved to be out of the water and out of harm's way.
Felt and I rotated around until it got to the soft area.
Yeah.
And this was another bite. It came through the gills, right through the backbone, right across and out. That was another bite from here. So there's one bite there, one here, and one small bite on this side it had.
But it's amazing when you think about how tough this thing is.
Yeah.
And how cleanly it's severed.
A smaller white shark makes off with what's left of the bronze whaler carcass, in all likelihood to feed away from the violent attentions of bigger sharks. This behavior has not been recorded previously. Sharks are generally thought to consume their prey on the spot. The majority of reported great white attacks involve surfers or bodyboarders floating on the surface of the water. The surface splashing silhouettes are thought to trigger the shark's interest.
shark could be circling a bodyboarder for an hour and he wouldn't even know. And if that strange object on the surface doesn't react to the shark coming in closer and closer and investigating, its only choice is to go in for an investigative bite.
One really wonders, since you can evince the same behavior with these sharks by just getting a board and just dragging the board, and they come up and do exactly the same thing with it. Sometimes they grab it and hold on and then let it go, and sometimes they bite it and take a chunk out of it and the like and don't eat it. Some people have been not hurt because the shark grabbed the thing, didn't complete its bite, and then released it. They do this a lot with other things too. They do it with one another. They do it with penguins. They do it with seals.
Sharks favor attacking from below and are suspected of using the blinding glare of the sun on water to keep themselves invisible to surface prey. The new protected status of great whites and the increasing popularity of sports like surfing and diving may lead to an increase in shark incidents. However, the shark's interest in surfers has had little impact on South Africans' interest in surfing.
Challengers from as far afield as Hawaii had no answers to South African champion Neil Stevenson's sizzling display of skills. Stevenson from Plettenberg Bay piled on the points pressure, impressing the judges with a brilliant series of barrels and grand rollers.
It's not called the Cave Rock Challenge for nothing.
Last year, Stevenson was runner-up in this contest. Today, he lifts the Moray Challenge trophy.
I've been surfing for approximately 2 hours. I was about 75 meters away from my friend where we had been taking off when the shadow swam underneath me. The shadow just got bigger and bigger and was approximately 3.5 to 4 meters large. When I knew it was a shark, he didn't circle me like you see in the movies or anything. He was underneath me, he turned behind me, and the next thing he was hanging on my legs. My instinct was just trying to push the shark off, and that's when I felt like a soft spot, which must have been its eye, and I gouged my fingers in and let go. The shark had managed to remove my foot and clean all the meat from below my knee off my tibia and fibia, and that was all that was left. After he let go, I managed to pull myself back onto the board and start paddling away, and I had hardly given a few strokes, probably less than 5 seconds, and he had already come back for the second bite. Again, I tried to fend the shark off with my hand, and again I felt his eye, and I stuck my finger in his eye and turned him and twisted him, and he let go. I thought he was just going to come back again and again and again and just finish me off. It was just everything happened so quickly, it's just I didn't have time to even think, really.
The Natal Sharks Board in South Africa works closely with shark attack survivors to reconstruct attacks and so improve our understanding of dangerous shark behavior. By matching the jaws of various sharks against Neil's wounds, shark forensics expert Jeremy Cliff was able to confirm that the culprit was indeed a great white.
This is quite a dirty bite in that with one clean bite you'd usually get different tooth impressions in a crescent-shaped wound, but you see you've got some running this way and going that way. Because the thing about a great white is that the teeth are much further apart. So you get these big flaps sort of between the teeth, and that's what I think is here, is that one tooth's gone in there, another tooth there, so you've got this flap here between the teeth, similarly over there.
It's going to take a while before the guys start getting back in the water here, just I think out of fear that they haven't really come back.
It's no secret that people essentially are just scared of sharks. There is something horrific in our feelings towards them.
Divers are less vulnerable than surfers, for they are better able to interact with the ocean environment. The presence of other mammals, like dolphins, is somehow comforting. Indeed, there have been reports of dolphins saving humans by driving off sharks. But dolphin behavior is no more predictable than shark behavior. If a shark arrives, the dolphins may quickly disappear. Seals are by no means easy meat for sharks. Their smaller size and vertical flexibility frequently allow them to dodge the shark's jaws at the last moment. Thus, sharks tend to target individuals that are weak, unwell, or isolated. Seals are amusing company, but cameraman Graham Duane knows that if a shark arrives, he will be the odd seal out.
A seal is a very, very familiar object and animal to a great white. It's been feeding on seals. It's evolved to feed on seals. A human, on the other hand, is a very different creature underwater to a seal. Far less agile, much bigger, actually quite awkward.
We would have no chance of emulating what these seals do when they're beset by a white shark. They don't just sit there. They just move very, very quickly and the like and try to dodge out of the way. Sometimes they succeed, sometimes they don't, and often they don't. The sharks are perfectly capable of running them down and do so.
Marine biologists have long recognized that sharks are vital to the ecology and health of the world's oceans. In 1991, South Africa became the first country in the world to declare the great white shark a protected species. Australia, the state of California, and others have followed. Dyer Island, on the southern tip of Africa, is the world's best-known magnet for great white sharks. The island is a haven for seabirds and mammals, with thousands of seals crowding the rocky outcrops. Currents carry the seal scent far out into the ocean, attracting sharks in such numbers that shark safaris here are able to guarantee tourists the thrill of spotting a great white. The nearby town of Gansbaai is turning from a sleepy fishing village into a shark tourism mecca. Several shark safari operators are now based in the town. Among them is Andre Hartmann. Over the years, great white sharks have become Andre's central interest and his means of livelihood. Today, Andre won't be taking any clients out. He and Graham Duane are at last embarking on the project closest to their hearts. Their mission, to film great whites in the most natural way possible. Cages are the usual vehicle for viewing and filming sharks. Thus, when the human world sees sharks live or on television, it is usually from behind bars. This convict's eye view tends to reinforce the myth that sharks are little more than single-minded mincing machines. The behavior we're witnessing here is an abnormal response to abnormal circumstances. Sharks probably do not recognize a diver in a cage as a potential meal. Rather, their senses may be confused and infuriated by the alien nature of the entire cage diving unit. Filmmakers can edit out the bars of the cage, but that won't authenticate the shark's behavior. Andre and Graham are about to experiment with an alternative to cage diving.
You know where the kelp is? Yeah. I want to lie close to the kelp.
Andre uses a special chum to attract the great whites.
And the white sharks love the smell of this stuff because they know it. We just hang it in the bag off the back and we give it a little squeeze every now and then. And the sharks come.
The chum releases a delicious cloud of blood and fatty oils into the water. The seal board complements the chum as a focus for the shark's attentions.
Okay, this is a piece of wood that we use. It's supposed to be a sea otter or something like it.
It's just to call them to the surface to show us when they're here. Otherwise, they steal the bait.
Even around Dyer Island, finding sharks requires patience.
Shark on the board. Mostly when they approach the board, they just come up off the bottom. Sometimes mouth it, sometimes just touch it with the nose to see if it's whether it's soft or hard. And the moment it's hard, they immediately veer off.
The inclination to spy hop, or peer above the water, is peculiar to great whites, a species that specializes in hunting marine mammals. Spy hopping helps the great white to spot potential prey stranded on rocky ledges or on floating objects. It may also be a form of display. For this great white, visual information seems inadequate. Perhaps it wishes to read the boat's electromagnetic potential with its Lorenzini receptors. Great whites often injure themselves while investigating boats, so Andre has taken to pushing them away. A sudden, unexpected snap could cost Andre his hand, or indeed his life.
And that stops her from biting the motor. You saw it was actually going for the motor, and I just pulled its nose a little bit away, and it went for my hand rather than the motor. And then she'll stay around, maybe play longer. And if you saw now, she didn't try a bite. I had her by the nose, and she just sort of gaped, but the top teeth didn't come out. When the top teeth comes out, that's when she tries for a bite. This is just a feel. You get that gap there. No.
I think you can look at a shark's mind, quote unquote, as essentially a black box. They show certain things by their behavior indicative of curiosity. They're capable of learning. They have very sophisticated senses and so on and so forth. But to get to the actual how that processing works, what goes on in the brain of a shark, how it relates to something like a diver is hard to say.
For Andre and Graham, the moment of truth is now very near. For the first time, these men will enter the domain of the great white shark, totally unprotected.
These conditions are pretty good because we've got a nice current coming through the channel here. The visibility is about 8 meters, which gives us enough time to see what's coming and, to get a decent shot of the shark.
When we get down there now, I'm going to look behind your back for sharks. I'm going to look at you at all times. You're going to look at me at all times. If you see a shark behind me, you point. Okay, and once you point, we both know where the shark is, then you roll. If I see a shark behind you, I'll point.
Okay.
And you just turn around slowly and roll.
So we just watch each other?
Yeah, and once you're rolling, I'll watch your back. Don't worry about anything behind you. I'll look behind you for anything behind.
Okay, great.
This great white seems uncannily aware that Graham is about to enter its domain. If ever there was a moment for a second thought, this is it. It is also a good day for sharks. The boat has attracted a number of very large and curious visitors.
When you first get into the water with the whites, it's an amazing feeling because you'll never be more focused in your life on anything else at any single time. And you get such an adrenaline rush that you just become hyper alert.
The moment we get in the water, they just come close and have a good look. Sometimes give a little bit of gape, but never actually coming out to try and take you.
Cases if the sharks were essentially aiming for you as food, they could kill you very, very quickly, as they can do with seals.
A gentle stroke with a spear gun helps Andre to test the shark's reactions and to assert that he is not an item from its regular menu. The gun would, however, be useless against a full-blooded attack.
By diving with them, you have to learn essentially what the rules are of engagement, disengagement, what you do to them and such.
In watching the shark, I was finding myself anticipating its next move, or trying to anticipate. So I'd watch for one peck that would drop, and that would give me a hint that it was going to turn to the right or to the left. Or sometimes it gapes slightly at you and then turns away. It's a little threat exercise that it goes through. It all depends on your next move. If it swims straight for you, you've got to react. You know, otherwise, if you don't react to it, it's going to come in and investigate you further. And the only way it knows how, you know, it'll bite you.
You're at one with the sharks in a situation where they have all the advantage, and you have to learn to survive. You have to watch them to survive. You have to not provoke them, but also understand their behavior more.
There were moments when I just wanted to be on the boat. Situations like when I was caught on the bottom, the shark was above me. I could do nothing. I had to relax, I had to conserve my air. All I wanted to do was be out of the water. But you can't. You're stuck there and you have to deal with it.
Diving with them puts in a complete new aspect. It's a complete new learning curve. You can watch them from the boat forever, but you'll only know X amount. You'll see them do this, you see them do that, you see them do that, and you can assume this is what's happening there or that's what's happening there. But the moment you get in the water, in a cage, you're limited to the cage again. So you can only see them from a certain angle.
Free diving as opposed to scuba diving or cage diving, there's a very big difference in the way the shark reacts to you, you being in its environment. When you have a scuba kit on, not only are you ungainly, you lose a lot of free movement, but you're producing a lot of noise. And what we noticed when we first started scuba diving and cage diving was that the shark would actually keep its distance. It would stay on the edge of the visibility, and as filmmakers, we battled to get our subject closer to us.
Free diving with great white sharks has allowed Graham and Andre to prove on film that great whites are by no means mindless or automatic attackers. Indeed, it appears that great whites are not instinctive enemies of humankind. Rather, they meet us with uncertainty, much as we ourselves might meet visitors from Mars.
White sharks are social animals. We didn't recognize this until relatively recently, but underwater observation, ironically starting with people just trying to film white sharks, began to reveal that they had a lot of social interactions, and more of this has shown that, yeah, they are social animals. They get together in groups, they interact. The interactions are complicated. They have a lot of ways of communicating with each other that we don't understand. really don't want to get these animals very aggressive at you. You want to know enough about them to know the signs if one's getting a bit twitchy or whatever, and to know when an animal comes in that may be a bit different than the next animal you might have been working with, because I think there's a thing of motivational differences and possibly even personality.
There is always the chance when you are free diving with the great whites that a shark that you haven't seen could come in. In the one instance, we were standing on the boat preparing to dive, actually kitting up, and about a 5.5, 6 meter great white just came steaming in from the horizon and just started chewing on the corner of the boat. It's the first time and it's the only time I've ever seen behavior like that. And if you were in the water at that time and you hadn't seen that shark, it could well have been you instead of the corner of the boat, and then your history.
Once you're in the water and you're swimming with a couple of sharks that are nice and relaxed, some big one like it with an attitude might just arrive. And I think I'm a little bit afraid of that still.
So, sharks remain unpredictable. As a photographer who later joins Andre and Graham is to discover. With the tape still rolling, Graham and Andre save the photographer by beating the shark off with their cameras. The only predictable thing about great whites seems to be their unpredictability. For obvious reasons, marine biologists have never found dangerous shark species to be easy subjects for research. Even today, much of our understanding of sharks is based only on intelligent guesswork.
I don't think sharks actually come in and consciously feed on human beings. It's mistaken identity, investigation. Sharks are very instinctive animals. They have a menu, as it were, and human beings are not on their menu.
Sharks eating people, well, it occasionally happens, and it's almost the exception that proves the rule. For the most part, this doesn't happen, and the why of that is very curious, because here we are, we're increasingly invading their domain. Why aren't they preying on us in proportion to this?
From my experiences with the great whites, diving with Andre, we found that they are, let's say, more predictable than other species of sharks. They're easier to read, because they operate alone. We always normally work with one shark. Another one might arrive on the scene, they'll have a little dominant session and one will leave, but there'll always be one that we work with. So it's much easier to see what that shark's doing. They tend to swim very slowly, they're very cautious. It's almost as if they're untrusting of you. That's the impression you get.
We always like 2, 3 in the water, never one alone. I feel if you're one alone and you're away from the boat and they find you there, it might be completely a different ballgame.
When we free dive, the fact that the shark swims towards us and we react to it, we swim towards it, you make a sudden movement with your hand, it all gives that shark a good hint that you as a creature are reacting to the shark's advances, as it were.
You can never see or trust what they're going to do, There's always that one is a bit different to all the others, and he'll just come in no matter what, So you've got to always keep good eye contact with them and know where they are at all times.
I've accepted my situation now, and I was just unfortunate in what happened, and I have new challenges now, and I'm still young, so I've still got a good life ahead of me, and I've accepted it, so I think that's a good enough step for me. I have no anger towards sharks. I'm not going to go and hunt every shark that lives down now, but they must just be.
has exterminated or contained most large predator species. Sharks are among the few that still defy total containment. They were ruling the oceans for hundreds of millions of years before our ancestors became the so-called lords of creation. They may persist long after we are gone.